Even Paul Finebaum thinks Byrum Brown can help solve Auburn's consistent problems at quarterback.
In the world full of podcasts, he's the undisputed heavyweight champion of hot takes, an Auburn sports homer, master of the book, and message board legend. Get your buttons buttoned and your hats flattened because the Top Button Podcast is about to kick off. And you don't want to miss your courtside seat. Now, here's your host, Charlie Five.
So we're back. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Rush, a.k.a. Charlie Five, and we are ready to get after it. Are Auburn's quarterback woes that seem to be a tradition, unlike any other, seemingly coming to an end, at least for this year? Paul Finebaum seems to think so. We'll talk about his quote and what that means and really deep dive into Auburn's just complete lack of success at quarterback. We're going to talk about Auburn's offensive linemen drafted and look back at last year and say, was offensive line really the problem? And then the last segment is simply Vontrell King-Williams is a dog. What a lucky program we are to have him. We're going to talk about all that. Let's dive right in. Look, I want to jump straight into the Paul Finebaum quote and then unpack it, okay? Because really, if you look at the issues and the ups and downs that Auburn's had over the years and why you can have the highest of highs of success, and you really pinpoint why Auburn had those highest of high successes, you can almost always point to quarterback play and why Auburn can't seem to maintain that level of quarterback play. But when they have good quarterback play, they have a ton of success. He was asked if Byrum Brown could be the answer, at least for this year, to Auburn's quarterback woes, ongoing issues. And he says this, I truly do believe that. I'm basing it on having seen him play, knowing that he's got the people and the parts around him that he's familiar with. That doesn't necessarily mean they can win a ton of games, but I'd much rather have a veteran quarterback coming into this situation than gambling on some guy who is third on his third team. Look, I think that's why most of us feel confident in Byrum Brown is because we've seen it. We can point to it. Sure, the level of competition is going to get higher. But there are times even when he's played that higher level of competition in hostile territory, and the production really hasn't dropped off that much. If you're a daily listener to the show, this is going to be about the fifth time you've heard me say it. If you pop in here now, you may have missed it the other times, but if you go back and look at total yardage gained against Florida, that was a good defense from quarterbacks. You look at every SEC quarterback that played against Florida, and then you throw in Carson Beck. Byrum Brown outgained all of them. That includes Trinidad Chambliss, which was the closest. That's every one of them. I know you're going to say, oh, Florida stunk. Yeah, they did stink, but their defense didn't stink. They were pretty dang salty on defense, and he did it in Gainesville. But let's really think about Auburn's quarterback position. Okay, I could go back way far, but let's just go back to 2010. Okay, last time Auburn, obviously won a national championship. You had the elitist of the elite quarterback play that you could ever have. Okay, you had it. Oh man, it was right there. That was awesome. And then you go down into the depths. 2011, quarterback issues. 2012, injuries, quarterback issues. You come into 2013, you get elite quarterback play. And then what happens? You play for a dang national championship. 2014, I still think you had pretty elite quarterback play. I think Nick Marshall still holds the record for the most passing yards in a single game in that Iron Bowl. Threw for 450, lost, couldn't stop a cold, you couldn't stop anything, couldn't stop literally anybody from scoring. You had great quarterback play, though. Then you have 2015 issues, 2016 issues. 2017, you get elite quarterback play, or I would say a little bit above average to close to elite quarterback play. You knock off the number one team 2 times in a row, and you play for an SEC championship. You're one game away from the playoffs. 2018, you regress a little bit in quarterback play. 2019, you get good quarterback play and you win 9 games. You don't get great quarterback play, and it costs you several games. And then so on and so forth. 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025. Auburn has been an absolute disaster at quarterback for the better part of almost 2 decades. I mean, that's 9 seasons since 2010 that you've had a quarterback where there's been like quarterback changes within the season. Like you just didn't have one solid guy from the beginning all the way to the end. It's just been a problem. And what you're hoping now is, could Byrum Brown have a good enough season where it sort of kickstarts something? You really just need somebody, and the timing is really good too. Because if you think about it, like a lot of those guys, why did Gus Malzahn go away from the Nick Marshall style quarterbacks? Why could you not harness that success of Jarrett Stidham and continue it on? Why did the success of Cam Newton not yield like other great quarterbacks that want to come in? I think that if you can have success with a guy like Byrum Brown, and quarterback play being so important to, I feel like what Alex Golesh wants to do and the success that he's had with quarterbacks, I think if he can show that he can do it at this level, I think Alex Golesh is the guy that's going to use that and snowball it and continue to kind of keep that momentum rolling. And it's good that you can jumpstart it on your very first year. It's good that you had that advantage of having that sort of ready-made guy right off the bat that you could throw in there and you could push forward and roll with at the very, very beginning of your career at that particular school. Quarterback play is so very vital, and it feels like it really does. Paul Finebaum's not a friend to Auburn. You even saw in that particular quote, or you heard in that particular quote, he had to take a slight dig. Hey, look, he's good. Don't get your hopes up too much, though. I'm not saying he's going to come in and win just a ton of games. He's really good. He's not a friend to Auburn, but I think even he realizes when you look at the whole scenario of continuity from one place to another, and then you add that in with production from one place to another, and then you just look at the skill set and what he can do. Again, I don't know that I'm saying this kid could go win 10-plus games and get you in the playoff. I mean, Auburn's still got a lot of work to do in general just to get back to that elite level. But at least maybe, just maybe, it can spark something and get Auburn into the conversation with, or even a little bit better standing with elite quarterbacks. If Byrum Brown has an elite year and, Will Minsell was in the next class, does that help you better with the top quarterback? There is a top quarterback that Auburn is talking to in the 2028 class. Does this help you spark something if he has the year we think he could have? Does it help spark you getting that ball rolling on the next guy? Can Tristan Tia step in right behind? Did they pick out the right guy to succeed not succeed, to follow up with Byrum Brown? Did they pick that guy in Tristan Tia? Like, everything can spark here if Byrum Brown has the season we think he can have. So it really is, man. When you go back and look at everything, you feel more confident about what this situation can bring at quarterback than you have in quite some time. Like, even, who was super fired up about who's really thought Nick Marshall could do what he could do. I know we talked ourselves into Jarrett Stidham, but dang, he took a whole year off of football. Like, really, there was a lot of blind faith there as well. At least you got, the proven production to point to here with Byrum Brown. I want to talk about offensive line here as well in just a second in the draft, and Vontrell King-Williams. Let me know what you think about the quarterback situation. Let me know what you think about quarterbacks moving forward. We're going to jump into the offensive line conversation in just a second, but before we do that, I want to give a quick shout out to PayZoom. Go to bizpayzoom.com. If you take credit card payments, are you sure you're getting every discount that you need to be getting from the credit card companies? They give different discounts per industry. Do you even know who to call to find out if you're taking advantage of those discounts? Why not do business with an Auburn person? Hey, how about that? Buy Auburn and do business with a local person as well. Call Nate, 251-648-7580. Been in business 20 years. No rate increases, no early termination fees. It's PayZoom. Show them some love. And then kind of the theme that we're echoing, buy Auburn, baby. BuyAuburn.com. PayZoom. Buy Auburn. Be who you say you are. If you're going to do business, start with Auburn people. We got the business network there, over 20-plus businesses. We're closing in on 30 in a very short amount of time. You can list your business for less than $1 per day and be a part of the big network. And then, hey, if you're a shopper, if you're out there looking for a service and you're an Auburn fan, start here, man. Do business with Auburn people. It's buyauburn.com. We'll be back right after this. If you ask 10 people what was the issue last year, what was the biggest issue last year, I think a lot would say quarterback. There's no doubt about it. But I feel like right after that, most are going to say offensive line. It's just the worst offensive line we've had. They were terrible, and it's when you look at the product on the field, it's not very it's kind of hard to argue because they played so bad. But then you look at the NFL draft. You have two guys on the interior go in the fourth round, almost virtually back-to-back. You had Connor Lew go 128 to the Bengals, and Jeremiah Wright, who's played a ton of college football, signed with Gus Malzahn, goes 132 to the New Orleans Saints. We talked about Jeremiah Wright and how much of the talk of the Senior Bowl he was. And I know you're thinking, oh, man, fourth round, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? Interior offensive linemen just don't get really the love that the tackles get. Like, the value's not necessarily super high for those guys. So going in the fourth round, getting drafted at all is a big deal. But you had 2 draft picks on that offensive line from last year, and I'm going to make a prediction. And I know a lot of people are probably going to turn their nose up at this. But our big left tackle last year, Xavier Chaplin, I'm going to predict that he's going to be a draft pick this year, this upcoming year. I think he's probably going to have a pretty good season. I think that group was talented, and they were just so poorly coached. So that whole system with the disjointed play calling and everything, communication was bad, execution was bad, game plan was bad. I think that system did them no favors last year. And you don't have to look any further than them getting drafted. Jeremiah Wright, honestly, probably played his way into the draft at the Senior Bowl when he was getting coached by people that have an idea of how to have I guess you could argue they don't because they're last, and that's why they're the coaches at the Senior Bowl. But regardless, the scouts saw what he could do. The coaches that were there saw what he could do, and he became the talk of again, one of the talks of the Senior Bowl because, hey, this guy can play. Connor Lew, if he didn't have a knee injury, he could have been drafted even higher. That guy can play. There was talent on that offensive line. I think, this isn't just like the greatest achievement. I mean, I don't know. I think it's a pretty good achievement. Essentially, your whole starting offensive line, other than Xavier Chaplin, who's still playing, all the guys that are left are either drafted or signed undrafted free agent contracts. I know Too Tall did. I saw that Dylan Wade signed with the Packers. Mason Murphy signed a contract. Like, you had talent there. They weren't untalented. They were just so poorly led from the top. Okay. And you don't really know if it's the chicken or the egg. Was it the offensive line coach? Was it the system? Was it the guy at the top? Like, it was just so disjointed last year that it affected everybody. And the offensive line bore a brunt of the pain. How many sacks last year were just from the quarterback holding the ball too long? A bunch. I don't think anybody would argue that. I think that's probably one of the more frustrating things of last year. And I say this, and people kind of scoff. Some do, some agree, and some scoff. I think that team last year was talented. I really do. I think it's one of the worst coaching jobs offensively in the history of football. It really is. Yeah, you had some issues at quarterback, but I think all in all, I think the offensive line was talented enough. Your backs obviously were talented enough. Your wide receivers, tight ends, all were talented enough. And you even had a quarterback. You at least had one quarterback on the roster that was talented enough to light up the scoreboard. You see the draft and it makes you go back and scratch your head and be even more frustrated with last season. Something a little bit more positive, and he's still on the staff, Vontrell King-Williams, who also had a great draft. Keldrick Falk, who he coached a ton, helped recruit, all of that stuff. Actually, I think he was a part of the recruiting class right before Vontrell King-Williams got promoted, but I believe he was still on staff at that point in time. Remember, he was brought in when they thought that these assistants were going to actually be able to be on-field coaches, but that didn't pass for like one more year. So they identified him early as somebody that could be a factor, be a good, young, up-and-coming, on-field X's and O's guy in the trenches. They identified him early, so kudos to the staff at that point in time for picking him out. He gets promoted, and the defensive line doesn't miss a single step, and it looks like going into this next year, they're going to be one of the strengths of the team again. You had Bobby Jamison Travis last year that played his way into the draft. That's a really, really cool story. Again, Keldrick Falk played a lot last year on the inside as well. Just continues to recruit really well. You got a commitment from Donovan Moore, one of the top players in the state of Alabama. Great recruiter, great developer. Boy, man, we are lucky to have that guy. It's so funny when you go to practice. You go to practice and you just kind of look around and you look for media. You look for guys that are high school coaches. You look for people that aren't there to coach. They're just there to observe. And his group always has the biggest crowd, like hands down. He's just so passionate, and I think the dudes love playing for him, and I really am excited to see the product he puts on the field this year because, again, you did lose a Malik Blockton. You did lose Bobby Jamison Travis to the draft. You do have some rebuilding to do, and you got some young pieces. You got some older pieces, and for the most better part of the whole spring, that interior defensive line was dominant. They dominated the offensive line. And then they had their struggles. They had their wins and their losses that we saw in the A-Day game. But again, the consistent voice over the last couple of seasons, Vontrell King-Williams, we're so lucky to have kept him through the coaching transition. And he's going to just continue to be a star. And, I know the NFL wanted him. There's several teams from the NFL that wanted him this offseason. And we're lucky. We're lucky we kept him. So shout out to Vontrell King-Williams. Just a dog. Dude's a dog. Glad we got him. Guys, let me know what you think about the quarterback situation. Let me know what you think about Byrum Brown. Do you think he could be the solution? Do you think he could be the answer? Do you think he could be the kickstart to maybe a little run of some how about just, we don't have to have great. Doesn't have to be elite. Would love it. How about just good quarterback play? Solid quarterback play. That's it. Don't be a liability. If we could have 5 seasons of that in a row, of a quarterback not being a liability, where could we be in 5 years? Where could Auburn be in 5 years? Y'all take it easy. We'll be back again soon. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. Stay buttoned.
Thanks for listening, and drive home safely.